So listen to this because this is actually wild, and the more you sit with it, the louder it gets. On the surface it looks like Christian Combs is being the loyal son, smiling, showing love, playing supportive, but when you really break it down, the message underneath is something completely different, almost uncomfortable, because if Diddy were to sit back and actually watch this video, what exactly is he supposed to feel? What is this saying to him without saying it out loud? I want to walk you through this slowly because none of this feels accidental. Christian and his girlfriend. Yes, the same girlfriend who was constantly rolling into court late, every single time, dressed down like it was some casual hangout while everyone else took the situation seriously. Suddenly pop up in this carefully curated video where she's gifting him things, and the gifts themselves are doing all the talking. They're playful, sure, but they're loaded with sexual innuendo, very intentional, very look at me, I'm different, including that book about living with a huge ego. And he laughs like he's shocked, like this wasn't planned, like this wasn't something they both agreed would be posted for the world to see. But let's be real, nothing about this was spontaneous. This was a message crafted for the masses. For years, Christian has leaned into looking like his father, sounding like his father, marketing himself as the Combs heir who resembles Diddy more than anyone else. And now, right after all these disturbing revelations come out, right after multiple freak-off workers publicly claim that Diddy only has 2 inches, suddenly Christian is pivoting hard. Now it's jokes. Now it's distance. Now it's I'm not that guy. And if you think about it from Diddy's perspective, that has to sting, because the undertone of this whole video is, I'm not you. I didn't get everything from you. I didn't inherit that. It's subtle shade wrapped in humor, wrapped in a couple's TikTok moment, wrapped in laughs, but the message lands the same. Christian is trying to separate himself from the image that once benefited him, signaling that what he carries comes from Kimura's side, from the men on her side of the family, not from the part of his legacy that's now collapsing in public. And that's what makes this whole thing feel so uncomfortable, because it's not loud disrespect, it's quiet distancing, the kind that says everything without saying a word. Let me say this very clearly because this is where the confusion starts. This entire situation did not need to exist. Nobody was talking about Christian Combs. Nobody was discussing him, his body, his masculinity, or anything remotely close to that. This was not a conversation happening online, in the blogs, or in the streets. And that's why what he did comes across not as confidence, but as backtracking and damage control. When you volunteer information nobody asked for, it immediately raises eyebrows. It creates suspicion instead of reassurance. What Christian put out there was essentially a public announcement saying, I'm not like my father. And not in a moral way, not in a values way, but in a very strange, immature, and unnecessary direction. It wasn't thoughtful. It wasn't classy. It wasn't subtle. It was loud, awkward, and deeply uncomfortable to watch. The jokes were forced. The setup was obvious. The laughter felt rehearsed. And the entire thing came across as 2 people trying too hard to prove something that didn't need proving. And when people try this hard to separate themselves from a narrative that never included them, it starts to feel like insecurity, not independence. This was not organic humor between a couple. This was a performance, a skit, a message. And that message wasn't really for the public, it was personal. It was Christian trying to draw a line in the sand and say, whatever they're saying about him, that's not me. But here's the issue. When you do that publicly, especially when your father is under intense scrutiny, it doesn't come across as self-definition. It comes across as shade. Whether intentional or not, it lands as disrespect. Because now you're not just separating yourself, you're contrasting yourself. And contrast implies judgment. This is where it stops being harmless and starts being messy. People need to understand how Diddy operates. This is not a man whose ego sits quietly in the background. His ego has always been front and center. Bigger than friendships. Bigger than loyalty. Bigger than even his own children. That's not speculation, that's history. Anyone who has followed his career knows that everything around him must ultimately reflect well on him, serve him, or elevate his image. So when Christian releases a video that subtly implies, I didn't inherit certain things from you, that's not going to land as a joke. That's going to land as a challenge, as embarrassment, as public undermining. And even if Diddy laughs for 5 seconds, that laugh is not genuine. Because beneath it is irritation. Beneath it is anger. Beneath it is the feeling of being mocked by his own son. And this is why it's so reckless. Because Christian didn't just embarrass himself, he embarrassed his father publicly at a time when his father is already under pressure. That does not benefit Diddy in any way. And when something doesn't benefit Diddy, it becomes a problem. That's how he works. You see it with how his children move. When they visit him and it benefits his image, it's suddenly a TMZ headline. When something happens that doesn't make him look good, that's when tension starts. This video does not uplift him. It does not defend him. It does not protect him. It quietly mocks him. And that's why this isn't just cringe, it's provocative. Here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Real confidence does not announce itself. People who are secure do not feel the need to prove anything. They don't stage skits. They don't joke excessively. They don't drag attention to areas nobody was questioning. When someone does too much, it often reveals the opposite of what they're trying to show. This entire video felt like overcompensation. And overcompensation always invites speculation. It doesn't shut it down, it amplifies it. Now people are talking. Now people are laughing. Now people are comparing. None of that was happening before. Christian introduced this topic himself. And once you open that door, you don't control how people walk through it. And let's be honest, this isn't the first time. Every time Diddy's sons try to go viral, it feels forced. Nothing ever feels natural. Whether it's awkward club videos, staged affection, or moments that clearly should have stayed private, it always feels like an attempt to manufacture relevance instead of letting it come naturally. This video fits that exact pattern, and that's why it irritated people. Not because it was offensive, but because it was unnecessary and try-hard. Now contrast that behavior with someone like Jordyn Woods. Look at how her story unfolded. She was dragged publicly, humiliated, isolated, treated as disposable. And instead of oversharing, instead of clapping back, instead of forcing narratives, she went quiet. She focused. She built. She healed. And now look where she is. Engaged. Stable. Wealthy. Loved. Thriving. Not because she explained herself, but because she didn't. Her growth spoke louder than any video ever could. That's the difference between maturity and insecurity. Between evolution and reaction. Between confidence and noise. Christian didn't need to say anything. Silence would have worked in his favor. Instead, he spoke. And now the message is messy, confusing, and damaging, not just to him, but to his father and to the entire family dynamic. This wasn't bold. It wasn't brave. It was unnecessary. And unnecessary actions always have consequences, especially in families built on ego. Sometimes the loudest thing you can do is say nothing at all.